Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this year's Nebraska State Historical Society members meeting. Tonight, we do have the pleasure of sharing the results of this year's Board of Trustees election and also give you, as the first public look into our renewed commitment to serving the public here at the Nebraska History Museum. To begin this evening, I would like to please welcome the director of the Nebraska State Historical Society, Cindy S. Drake.
Thank you, Chris. It always helps when you have a radio personality as a member of your staff. Thank you for attending the 2023-2024 Nebraska State Historical Society Annual Membership Meeting. It is an evening to celebrate the accomplishments of our staff in furthering our mission to collect, preserve, and open to all the histories we share. This evening, we'd like to make a special thank you to the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation for funding this evening's event. And before I proceed any further, I want to introduce to you my two deputy directors. Ben Cruz, sitting in the back, and David Bristow. Without the two of them, I would not be able to do even 3/4 of what we've been trying to do in the last couple of months. So, without any further ado, I am going to read to you the results of the election of new board members. I'm pleased to announce the following the winners of the 2024 Nebraska State Historical Society Board of Trustees election. In District 1, Gail DeBuse Potter from Lincoln. For District 2, Anna Castor Whiteman, who I don't believe is here this evening, but she will be notified. And for District 3, Shannon Smith from Gordon, Nebraska. So the other two they're not here this evening, we will be contacting them in the morning. Congratulations to the newly elected Nebraska State Historical Society trustees. And we also want to thank the board members who they replaced and for their time of service to the Nebraska State Historical Society. There's Sean Flowerday, David Levy, and Chandra Diaz. Again, we want to thank them for their service on the State Historical Society Board of Trustees. Okay. Chris, your turn.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Our mission here at the Nebraska State Historical Society is to collect, preserve, and open to all the histories that we share. It is a mission that we cannot do alone, though. At this time, we'd like to welcome the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation up to the podium. They are a fundamental partner to our organization to help us to fulfill our mission. To say a few words, please welcome the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation Board President, General Roger Lemke.
So first, usually I go by old retired general now. And second, people say you stay behind the podium. if you're military, to kind of get some protection from gunfire. But I kind of like it out front. So if you don't mind, I'm going to speak from out here a little bit. It's hard to express the excitement that we're feeling right now within the foundation as we go forward. For quite a while now, we've been hoping that we could see a vision that we could turn around and do our thing, which is to raise money and promote the society. And so over the last month or so, the work has just been terrific towards that goal. And you're going to see some of that a little bit later tonight. So we just feel so grateful to be a part of this tonight and to be recognized as such. And then what I'm going to talk about here more is really what's going to happen going forward here. So first, just a little bit about what we bring, if you will, to the situation. Our assets right now are up around and over $2 million. And that includes, about 1,000 acres of, 1,100 acres of historic sites in Nebraska.
28 million.
I'm sorry, 20, what did it say, 2?
Yeah, you said 2.
I'm sorry, 20 million, yes. So, and one of the most recent pieces of that was our Walk to the Rock. It's connected to the Abbott Center, place where people can go and walk through natural prairie right up to Chimney Rock. And we get weekly reports on attendance. We've had people from all over the world, mainly Europe, that have come through. I'm trying to think now, why would anybody from outside the U.S. think of going to Scottsbluff, Nebraska? But nevertheless, it's there. We've had people from every state of the Union visit. Even going into October, the numbers would be in the 20s during the week and in the 50s on the weekend of people visiting Walk to the Rock and experiencing the walk through the prairie. A point here is it expresses what we have available in Nebraska if we promote it and push it and develop it. And I think what you're going to see and hear tonight is kind of the next leg of doing that here in Nebraska by the society with our support from the foundation. So when you think about that for a second, already we've provided the society about $15,000 for some summer workshops for children, because that's education, of course, is going to be an important factor here, and also free admission site days to get increased familiarity with the attractions that the society has throughout the state of Nebraska. We've recently committed over $80,000 for equipment and machines needed to fabricate equipment for the Nebraska timeline exhibits. And you're going to see information about that. It's going to get talked about tonight. And that's going to be just amazing. And the thing about this that's really neat is that we're talking about Nebraskans doing this work to create this timeline. Think about that. It's not coming from Canada, someplace else. It's coming from Nebraska. So that's what's so interesting in going forward with that. And I think so you look ahead into next year and so, you're going to see some dramatic changes right here in the museum that, again, I can imagine it being like Walk to the Rock, where you're going to have people complaining to the city about they can't find parking because they want to get into the museum. There are so many that are coming by. We supported the all-staff retreat that Cindy had just a week or so ago. And I'm announcing tonight that we're started off on a $2.1 million, there's the $2 million, got them turned around. There's on a $2 million plus campaign to basically support the efforts that are going into getting the timeline going and some other projects that are moving forward. All along for us, as long as if we knew the objective, we were ready to go out and get the money for it. So now, thanks to Cindy and her leadership, we know these objectives and we can see them and we can visualize them. So you're going to see $2 million for the timeline and on the second and third floor and so forth and so on, but also another 120,000 for the Learning Center. So you can imagine with that money there what that's going to look like and what it's going to do for kids that can come in and the educational programs that will be available. The society's looking to re-engage with the speaker program going forward, and so we will be supporting that as it goes forward too. And tonight, as you can see, we're hosting the event tonight. So I hope that you see here that we've got a connection here that's been reestablished that we are very, very excited about, because we can see a vision for Nebraska that isn't just going to be for Nebraskans, it's going to be for others throughout the nation. They're going to want to come to Nebraska to visit. So, Cindy, all the best going forward. And just to let you know, the foundation is behind you all the way. Thank you. Okay. Is it down there?
Thank you, General. So a little bit of a sneak peek there as to what we have coming up here at the Nebraska History Museum, and this is a great opportunity for us to share a little bit more of those details. And to do that, two of the people that are driving this are the two deputy directors.
No, you're first.
Oh, Cindy's first. That's right. You did tell me that, and I have it in my notes. So before we get to that, Cindy, come back up here.
All right, well, the first thing I do want to mention, though, is circulating here tonight are copies of our annual report. And it will also be available online by tomorrow afternoon. But if you would just like to look at a printed copy, there are a few copies available this evening. This is the first membership meeting. This is the first membership meeting, as it is tonight, as the Nebraska State Historical Society is entering a new chapter in its history. This is our first membership meeting as a code agency. During this transition time, we are asking for your patience as we go through uncharted waters. There's no guidebook for this. The only guidance I have is my 45 years as an employee of this institution and the assistance I receive from my deputy directors. We are, however, working closely with the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services. Besides their assistance with human resources, we are working with their budget office to restore financial accountability. This will help us in improving the efficiency and accountability of the agency's use of taxpayers' dollars. For example, we now plan to rely upon our own staff to prepare the history of Nebraska instead of using out-of-state consulting firms to do the work. In short, those employed by this agency are now doing what they were originally hired to do. To assist us in our efforts, I want to introduce you to Gary Bush. Gary is not only the Senior Budget Management Analyst for the Budget Department, he is also our Budget Financial Manager. Right now, he's spending 75% of his time with our finance team. And already, he has been a great help in us locating things that we need to be doing in the future. The NSHS is renewing its partnership with the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation, as you just heard from Roger. The foundation's been in existence for the past 82 years, supporting the State Historical Society. We will work in tandem with the foundation to better fund and work on historical activities, which will better serve residents throughout the whole state of Nebraska. Just this week, we reopened the James E. Potter Research Room, located at our headquarters building, from 1 day a week to 4 days a week. Those hours are 9 to 4:30 weekdays, except Tuesday. The Potter Research Room services the materials of the Nebraska History Library, books, newspapers, and maps, basically the published material, and as well the Nebraska State Archives that services our manuscripts, photos, AV, and of course, government records. Here in the Nebraska History Museum, we are planning new exhibits, as you have been seeing and hearing about tonight, to tell the comprehensive history of Nebraska from ancient times up to the 20th century. All the while, we will also be collecting not only from the past, but also focusing on collecting from the present as we prepare the current history going on around us today. I now want to turn the podium over to my deputy directors, David Bristow and Ben Cruz, who will focus on the plans of our Nebraska Timeline exhibits. I hope that before you leave this evening, if you have not already done so, that you will review the materials we have about this in the map area at our entrance, or where you signed in when you came in. Okay, David?
A lot of people have said to me in recent years, you know, it used to be I could spend hours looking at the exhibits at the Nebraska History Museum. And many of you probably remember when we had long-term exhibits that provided an overview of the state's history. They went up through 1916. Plus, we also had what was originally intended as a temporary exhibit, but we kept around for many years because it was so popular, an exhibit on Nebraska during World War II. But ever since this building was renovated several years ago, we've lacked comprehensive exhibits. Now, we've always had temporary exhibits on various Nebraska history topics, and that will continue to be an important part of what we do, because we want visitors to come back and always see something fresh, something new each time. And so in addition to full-size temporary exhibits, we're planning what we call mini exhibits for different spots in the building. And the idea is to have something new that's opening every quarter. But our main focus for the next several years is going to be rebuilding those comprehensive exhibits, what a lot of folks refer to as the timeline exhibits, because it kind of goes from past the distant past up to recent times. And we're going to do this in 5 sections so that we're not working on it for several years and then we open everything all at once, but doing it step by step. And so the basic time periods, there's an exhibit that was called First Nebraskans that covered Nebraska's native peoples. In terms of the timeline, it basically ran up about through the time of Lewis and Clark. But in a larger sense, we want that exhibit to also speak a little more generally about Native cultures. And so we will be partnering with tribal historians to ensure maximum authenticity for that. I think because of the partnerships involved, we're not going to start with that one because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time to really do that one write and work with all the folks that we need to work with. There will be an exhibit on Nebraska territory. And in that sense, we'll start with kind of the fur trade era of the early 1800s and cover topics such as the overland trails, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and the opening of Nebraska territory to settlement. The Civil War, which Nebraska participated in, the 1st Nebraska Regiment played a key role at the Battle of Fort Donelson. And I know this because I've been working with a group of people to actually place a monument at the Fort Donelson National Battlefield. Well, we're also going to talk about that in our exhibit. And we've got a great head start on it because our late historian Jim Potter researched it and wrote about it some years ago. And some of you may have read his book on Nebraska and the Civil War, titled Standing Firmly by the Flag. I recommend it. We have it in our gift shop. Always got to give that little plug in there. The third piece to our exhibits would be, well, the old version was called Building the State, essentially from 1867, when Nebraska became a state, up to just before U.S. entry into World War I. And so really looking at the development of Nebraska as a state. It covers the Great Sioux War and Indian Wars period, and a lot of different topics. The fourth piece would start with World War I, cover the 1920s, the Great Depression of the 1930s, and end with World War II. And then the fifth section would start just after the end of World War II and go forward to some point. We wouldn't bring it exactly up to present. I mean, when you're talking about things that are more recent than 30 or 40 years, it's hard to have much of a historical perspective. But certainly we want to look at carrying things a lot farther forward than the old exhibits did. So that's going to be a major, major project, and that's really going to keep us busy for the next several years. And not only are we going to cover this material, but we're going to do it with multiple audiences in mind. I mean, one obvious audience would be people like probably most of the people in this room, people who are really into history, the people who want to be able to come to a museum and come back again and spend hours and have a lot of content, a lot of things to see, a lot of things to learn. But we recognize that not everyone knows that they like history. Some people haven't realized that yet, and we have to sell them on that idea. And so we also have to have content and have material there that will communicate to people who have very little historical knowledge, who are mainly just going to kind of look at the things that attract their eye and kind of read the basic signage. And we want those folks to also come away learning something about the larger stories of Nebraska. And of course, the third main group would be students. We do a lot of school tours here. And we also, in the past few years, and I'm looking at Araceli in the back row because she got this program going, do a lot of virtual tours, which allows this museum to not just be for Lincoln folks or people who are within driving distance of Lincoln, but to reach every corner of the state and bring students, by the magic of modern technology, into different exhibits and be able to interact with them. And again, a lot of these are fourth grade classroom groups. And so, of course, we've got to make sure that we've got material that is age appropriate. And so, of course, that's where our education staff really comes in, because they not only work with students, but also with adults. And so we really want to think about how we're communicating to the public. So again, as I've said, this is a big challenge for us. And it's also a really exciting challenge. But in planning these exhibits, we do not have to start from scratch. That's kind of the beauty of the thing. Most of the old displays, the old casework, a lot of the things that you may remember having seen in the museum don't exist anymore. The artifacts, however, do. We've got a basement full of a lot of amazing things in our collection. We also, of course, still have the old exhibit scripts and the scholarship of past NSHS historians, Jim Potter, John Carter, Tom Beaker, Dick Jensen, and others. The work of our archaeologists, I'm thinking of Gail Carlson, Rob Bozell. And another thing I'll give a pitch for is our archaeology exhibit out there. And some of our past museum artists, I'm thinking of the work of Kurt Peacock. There is a model that he built in the archaeology exhibit of the Western Engineer steamboat. And he didn't just put this together at random, he researched it in great detail to create an authentic and as accurate as possible model. And so, of course, there's work of Kurt's that we want to bring back. And in terms of historical knowledge, we continue, here's another plug, to publish the latest research on Nebraska history in Nebraska History Magazine, which I've had the honor to edit for the past 16 years. Another very important resource that we've also talked about tonight is our relationship with the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation, which has already made a huge difference in expanding the possibilities for this project. And finally, as has also been mentioned, in taking inspiration from our predecessors, we have a plan to make the most efficient use of the funds available by designing and building the exhibits in-house. And so with that, I'd like to invite Ben Cruz down to talk more about that process. Thanks.
Before I start, I wanted to take a moment to thank all the staff members who helped set up today. I'm going to forget people, but Araceli, I think. Michelle, did you help as well, I think? Leslie, of course. Leslie helps with everything here. So, and Chris, who's hard to follow up. Generally hard to follow up with the radio voice is what it is what I'm saying. So, well, thank you, David, for sharing that. And I have to say a couple things about Cindy and David. Is I feel very fortunate to get to work with you guys. You guys are really my motivation. And David, what you said about the exhibit, I just want to follow up on something about that came to mind when you were speaking, is that I really would like to capture the passion and the spirit of the past. I'm going to share something real quick. A lot of you may not know, but as a young man, I took a field school in 1999 and 2000, in that time period. And I got the opportunity to meet Tom and Potter and Rob Bozell. And I decided then when I met them, and I didn't get to meet Cindy, I didn't go to the library, I'm so sorry, that I wanted to be like these guys when I grew up, you know. And I think that's what I really want to capture, is I want to capture their spirit and kind of keep that spirit moving on. The permanent exhibit, as David mentioned, we're going to build that in 5 years over 5 phases and 5 galleries. I spent an hour today on the phone with what would arguably be Nebraska's most experienced exhibit fabricator, and gave him the lowdown on what our plans were. And I have to say, I was surprised to see that he was pretty pleased with what he heard. It's hard to put yourself out there, and you know, and he was, I tell you, he's very, very pleased that we're moving forward in the direction that we're moving. Of course, the game changer with this is the generous gift of a CNC machine, laser cutter, and 3D printer. from the foundation. That will really facilitate this plan. Without it, basically, it'll allow us to triple our person power here and meet all of these pretty tight deadlines. So I'm just so excited that we're going to have this opportunity. And I don't know is Quentin here? Oh, there you are. There's our exhibit specialist, and he's actually the one kind of taking up the challenge of researching all these machines and how they work. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I think he's making some good progress. One of the things I do want to talk about is the idea of doing this in-house. In the past, we had Del Darling, all these folks who did just amazing work. And so we know it can be done. And with the addition of the modern technology that we're going to be incorporating, I think we're gonna make this happen. Now, the thought is this, that we would go with a modular design with this exhibit. What that allows us to do is to build basically units of the same thing over and over again. And as we move forward, our per unit cost is going to drop significantly. It's going to save us a lot of money. And so we're going to go with a modular system, and then we're going to kind of build around that. So what that will allow for is in the future, 20, 30 years in the future, people, well, even before then, it'll give us great flexibility to change the objects that are on display. So while the exhibit itself, yes, is permanent, the objects may change, to keep people coming back. So what it'll allow us to do, though, is to add a lot of great graphics and all kinds of custom work kind of around that modular system that can be taken down and changed as the times change. So I think it's all very exciting. I did want to mention a few other things as well. I really think we're going to have great events here. I think in the future we're going to have just really powerful, moving, community-focused events that are going to serve all Nebraskans. And I think the speaker series will be reintroduced under a different name. What did you come up with, lunchtime lecture? Or no, lunchbox lecture?
I think, Leslie,
Or-
I think maybe that was your idea, wasn't it?
Lunchbox lecture was Trixie Schmidt.
Oh,
And I
Trixie.
think it sounds great.
I don't see Trixie. Where's she sitting?
Thanks for Trixie.
Okay.
Trixie had to leave.
Oh, she did, okay.
When will that start then?
Well, I think we want to start with the genealogy, right? As soon as we can.
In January?
Sure, why
Yeah.
not?
Let's start
Yeah.
looking around January or in the winter months, get started.
One of the things I would like to see us do is what I call 6 months out planning. And so everything we do, we plan 6 months in advance. And that gives us plenty of time to fundraise and to put all the pieces together. And so right now, our focus is on Black History Month in February. And I have about 100 ideas. I know I can't do them all. So I'm going to hand this off. So I've asked.
1 year at a time.
Right. So I've asked some staff members to step in and kind of take the lead. And right now what we're doing is we're organizing some speakers. I hope we get them. I hope we get every one of them. They're going to be so great. I mean, really great stories. So I'm very excited for that. And I think that the staff members are going to come up with some great programming to go around with that. And I really hope to make it a statewide event, and especially the rural areas. It's just an unrecognized area. African Americans lived in rural areas of Nebraska. They still do. And we need to share that history. So after that, every year we want to do 2 or 3 of these if we can. And I think after that, the next one will be Hispanic Heritage Month and Indigenous Peoples Month. I think they overlap, so we'll have to figure that out, right? But I'm really, really excited. I think we're going to do just great things. I think the community is going to love it. I think the people are going to love it. The other thing I'll share real quick is we have made some changes to we've kind of reoriented our structure internally. And I just real quick want to introduce, Chris is the director of marketing, the director of operations, was the director of marketing. And what he's going to be doing is taking over all of our kind of internal functions and oversee those. So accounting, IT, marketing, facilities, and I think that's going to facilitate a change where our programming gets to focus outwards towards the public again. And those internal functions are going to really be nested together to better serve that mission. Marketing, I think communications, we took on Alan. Hi, Alan. This is Alan. He came over from the governor's office. I feel really excited about the kind of communications that's going to be coming out of the organization with Alan. I really hope internally and externally we can share every little thing we're doing. I mean, I get excited over really small things. And so, luckily he'll be doing it because, every little artifact that, Nolan would find, I would want to put on the web, But he'll go through that. But I really want everyone to know in this state what our archaeologists are doing, what historic preservation is doing, what's going on in the library. I can't tell you how many times Cindy has brought something to me, like some cool newspaper a 10-year-old came up with and owned himself. And just amazing stuff, and I just wish the public knew about it. And this will be an opportunity, I think, where we can start having a news feed and some things where we really boost that.
It's 4-H judging at State Fair.
What about that? What do you want to share about that?
Well, that's where you found some of the young adults.
Oh, yeah, that was great. We went to the 4-H fair and judged it this year, and I always wanted to do it. Always wanted to do it, and Cindy had me go with her. Some of the things that these kids are doing, I didn't know. I work here, and I didn't know these things. And one of the things actually was out at Neely Mill, there's some work being done to kind of facilitate a canal to prevent flooding. And I didn't even know we own this piece of land. It's 43 acres out there across the street from the mill. We go to this 4-H history event.
It's the 4-H Heritage Projects at the State Fair.
Okay, it's the 4-H Heritage Projects at the State Fair. So we're in Grand Island, and I'm judging this. And what is this project I see but this model bridge from the exact place where this 43 acres is, And this 10-year-old is teaching me about this thing that we've been talking. It was the most wonderful experience. So I just think there's going to be a lot of exciting things ahead. So, Chris, Cindy?
Just one other thing that I wanted to mention to follow up, and we were talking about doing things for Black History Month and Hispanics, and we also will try to do things on the early culture of our state as well in regards to the European immigrants, and doing more focusing on the immigrant groups that came from Europe, particularly before World War II. And of course, in our state, the European population was really in the 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s. So we were going to focus on them too. It might be more of a group effort of just European countries together as one and what they have brought to the state as well. So they're not going to be forgotten either. The other thing I do want to mention about my two deputy directors is they are working managers as well as being deputy directors. David, of course, is still doing the publications. And then David, he and Ben and David together are going to be overseeing all of this with the exhibits. And David is also in charge of education over here. So we've all taken our backgrounds into doing it. We've split up, supervising over the entire agency, and David and Ben each have their areas, and I do too. I'm going to be over the library archives. I hope in the near future to hire a history librarian. That position is basically vacant right now. So that's just a little bit, we're not just being director and deputy director. We're doing behind the scenes thing as well. Because presently, we have around 64 employees. And I don't know how much we're going to grow over that, maybe not too much over 70. And so in a case like that, I feel the director should know what each employee is doing. I mean, I'm not director of 300 or 1,000 employees. So just wanted to sort of mention that to you too. In closing, I want to mention 2 other goals that we have. Rebuilding our team of volunteers. Over the years, the society has had hundreds of volunteers who gave many hours to make NSHS what it is today. We have volunteers now, but we want to grow that number. And we are in the process of updating all aspects of our volunteer program. And finally, we plan, as been mentioned, we plan to increase public programming and events that we offer at our museum and the sites, while continuing to publicly promote the work of the entire agency. And as Ben stated too, we couldn't do this with the staff. We couldn't do any of this without the staff. And they're going to be playing more and more roles in the future for what the Nebraska State Historical Society becomes. So I want to thank them as well this evening. Thank you for coming this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again during the upcoming months.